You've probably heard the phrase capitalism for the poor and socialism for the rich. Think taxpayer-funded bailouts to the banks in 2008. Banks screw up, taxpayer steps in and saves them. Banks continue to make mega profits and pay massive bonuses to a tiny elite. Well, the same is now happening in Britain's privatised rail industry. This is Transport Secretary Mark Harper. Today, the rail union, the RMT, has revealed that he allowed two private rail companies to be paid £82 million in dividends in 2022. At the same time, both companies were indemnified by the taxpayer regarding lost revenues resulting from industrial action. In other words, the taxpayer footed the bill. The two rail groups in question are First Rail Holdings Limited, the holding company for First Group franchises, and Govia Thameslink Railways, which runs the UK's biggest franchise. Last year, First Rail Group reported dividend payments of £65 million, while Govia Thameslink paid £16.9 million to shareholders. First Rail Group is responsible for the Avanti West Coast and Trans-Pennine Express services, both of which have been the subject of massive controversy after cancelling hundreds of services. Here's the Scotsman from January this year. Avanti West Coast cancels about 1 in 5 trains as train reliability hits record low. Train reliability across Britain reached the worst level on record in recent weeks. That's because of industrial action, with Avanti West Coast cancelling the equivalent of about 1 in 5 services. Of course, the government decided to extend the Avanti West Coast contract. What else would they do? It's the Tories after all. So we have a situation where rail companies provide a terrible service and want their workers to get poorer in real terms, yet the taxpayer has to foot the bill when industrial action happens. Then they get the contract extended by the government, essentially being rewarded for failure, and proceed to pay out millions of pounds in dividends. It feels more like an organised racket than a sensible way to run vital infrastructure. Now, fortunately, it turns out I'm not alone in thinking that, with the RMT General Secretary, Mick Lynch, saying this. The DfT is now little more than a representative of big business, geared to turning tax revenue into shareholder dividends. If you're a private rail operator, it doesn't matter whether your problem is unpredictable passenger revenue, costly train leases, or industrial action. The Secretary of State is there to help, opening the public purse and emptying it into shareholders' pockets. This system is not operating in the interests of passengers, railway workers, or the taxpayer. It is clear that only full public ownership of train operation in this country can save our railways from being looted by this gang of unaccountable spivs. Only Mick Lynch could drop heat like that. We have big problems across things like water, rail, mail. But I think rail is broadly viewed. There's the consensus that actually, if you did need to bring something into public ownership, that would be the cheapest. You simply wait for the franchises to elapse. So while I don't have much confidence in Keir Starmer bringing many things into public ownership, and in his defense, he's quite open about that, right? He says very frequently, actually, we're not doing that anymore. On rail, they still maintain, they support public ownership. And I'm inclined to believe that a little bit because it won't cost very much. It'd be quite cheap. And the arguments for privately owned rail operators really don't exist.